Dylan.
I say that as you explain this bottom vessel, I go do a minute or a minute and a half of some exercise, and we come back and take my...
That's a groundbreaking on-the-fly thought. So Dylan's going to go do a little bit of intensity on an echo bike. Come back, and we're going to remeasure his blood pressure. Now, let's say perhaps you are a sedentary individual, or you are a poor eating habits. Hi friends, PC and Dylan Foss here from Gravity and Oxygen with another episode of Turf Talk Tuesdays, right?
Yes.
How you doing, bud? We're indoors on the turf. We are talking about blood pressure basics, blood pressure one-on-one. Dylan is here. We're going to take his BP right now. You ready, bud?
I'm ready.
Hit the button. Get ready. All right. So, as we're getting ready, as Dylan is getting his blood pressure measured, what are we measuring? We're measuring two numbers, systolic over diastolic. So traditionally people think of systolic, diastolic as 120 over 80. And there's some slight skews as far as the typical person's healthy blood pressure. And we're going to talk about numbers that show that your blood pressure may not necessarily be healthy. So as you notice, as I wrote, I'm inside a blood vessel right here. We'll call this an artery. Now, we're going to apply the idea of blood pressure and how it pertains to exercise. Right now, Dylan is getting his blood pressure done at rest. But if we ever had a measurement while he's done a 10-minute session on a bicycle, you might see his numbers change. Okay, let's talk about what happens during blood pressure. So here's at rest, okay? We have let's just say, a ball of blood being shot out from the heart. It leaves the last chamber of the heart, okay, the left ventricle, and it goes all the way out to the blood vessels. Now, this ball of blood is putting pressure on the walls of the vessel, okay? Now, let's say a couple seconds later, or 1 second later, another bead of blood is coming, okay? That also has its amount of pressure on the arterial wall. This pressure here is your systolic. The residual pressure in between those beats of blood is your diastolic, which is why generally, or should be, the diastolic number is lower than the systolic, okay? We've just taken Dylan's blood pressure. He is 137 over 76. Interesting. So he is slightly high on his systolic, and then right where we should be for his diastolic. Interesting factor, buddy. Are you nervous? You're right? You feeling like...
I'm feeling the effects of the video. Yeah.
Okay, feeling the effects of the video. Now, this is what happens at rest. So let's say Dylan was 137 over 76, the S and the D. Now we're beginning to exercise. A couple things go on with exercise and your blood pressure. All right. Number one, the size of your blood pressure, of your blood vessel, increases, so it dilates. So if you notice, this new vessel tube is a lot larger than the other one. So why is it dilating? To accommodate the increase of blood flow that is going out peripherally to the body, probably the muscles, okay? So now we have increased size or circumference of the blood vessel, but then also an increased amount of blood. Now, what's happening is this increased amount of blood is probably greater than the blood vessel's capacity to stretch and expand. Would you agree with that, Dylan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. So now, with exercise, we're going to expect the systolic to increase because its pressure on the wall increases. Here comes that second monster ball of blood. It's like a boulder coming through. So you see, my little kindergarten drawing here is really pressing on the walls of that artery. So we understand that we're really putting pressure. So your systolic blood pressure is going to increase with exercise. Now, if the size of the ball of blood coming out is greater, then that means that residual drag behind it should essentially stay the same or decrease. So your diastolic, okay, may be the same or decrease. That's what's going on, okay? If there are any differentiations where your systolic isn't increasing or your diastolic is increasing, those are some red flags of what's going on. And doing a test in a physiology location or lab would be indicators to see if you have true accurate blood pressure as what it should be doing during exercise. Dylan.
I say that as you explain this bottom vessel, I go do a minute or a minute and a half of some exercise, and we come back and take my...
That's a groundbreaking on-the-fly thought. So Dylan's going to go do a little bit of intensity on an echo bike. Come back, and we're going to remeasure his blood pressure. Now, let's say perhaps you are a sedentary individual, or you are poor eating habits. So if you're eating fats that are essentially high in food, cholesterol, you're not exercising to flush out, okay, the plaque that's going inside of your arteries, then this is what happens. This is a normal blood vessel once again. This is what it would look like if you have a healthy arterial system, okay? There isn't much plaque buildup or at all. So we have a healthy girth of your tube. Now, let's say you have plaque buildup. You're not exercising. You're not doing enough to allow blood flow to push plaque out of your arteries. Then you see plaque buildup in your arteries. And now the actual size of that tunnel in which your blood can flow is narrowed and it's constricted. So this is going to certainly increase your blood pressure if you are exercising and you have plaque buildup in your arteries. So this would be considered not a healthy situation. This would be considered a situation that we want. So Dillan's over there doing push-ups and bike. He wants to look swole for this video. We're going to remeasure his blood pressure now. I'm going to get him set up, arm through the cuff. Take a look at that. So once again, we're lining up this meter right on the medial part of his bicep, his radial artery. And then we're going to go ahead, his brachial artery. Brachial, whoa, radial is down here. Apologize, guys. Good. The only thing I slipped and didn't know my knowledge. Cool. So we're now going to remeasure Dillan's blood pressure. Just a little exercise. Good. We're going to zoom in on that number. Let's see what happens. Wait for it. The suspense is killing you. All right. We are here. Turf Talk Tuesday, Gravity and Oxygen, taking the post-exercise blood pressure of Dillan. As you can see, it puts a huge amount of pressure, air in the cuff, and then it begins to slowly diffuse that air, and it's looking for the reverb pressure of that pulse on the meter. Okay, we're going to find out. Let's see what happens. I'm going to sing the Jeopardy song while we're watching this. I want to know how many people watched the full completion of the video. So it's going all the way down. Now, we used to do in the old school, have to do this manually with a sphygmomanometer. Oh, yeah. So there you go. Perfect. Brad, let's go and take a look. So Dillan's blood pressure went to 164 from 137, and he went to 80. So only a 4-point increase on the diastolic, whereas he had a 30-point increase on his systolic. So as expected, what we hoped would happen did happen. Systolic went up, systolic went up, his diastolic stayed level and the same. So there you go. That is blood pressure 101. If you haven't had your blood pressure checked in a while, we recommend it. Go to a pharmacy, come see us, go to your doctor, make sure that you have healthy metrics, because these are the important things beyond having low body fat and skeletal muscle mass. Any final take-home points, brother?
No, I think it's just an important metric to be aware of and to take note of, and I think it's one way to measure fitness. How low can you keep your blood pressure in that range? If it gets too high, you have to make a change. If it gets too low, you have to make some change. That's it.
Correct.
As simple as it gets.
So if standard blood pressure is around that 120/80, we'll call that standard. Level 1, mild hypertension, would be something you're showing 130/100 at rest blood pressure. And then level 2, stage 2 hypertension would be considered something where you're 160/120. And those would be red flags to certainly get your blood pressure checked. Mm-hmm. Perhaps partake in a exercise program, perhaps to clean up your eating habits. And then hopefully we wouldn't have to have you lean on medication, but that's what initiates better blood pressure. While you're getting yourself in better condition, by all means do so, not necessarily for the long term. As always, guys, the more you know, the farther you go. Thank you for watching our latest edition of T3. Be on the lookout for further episodes with us knuckleheads. We'll see you soon. Good energy always.